Thank you, Lasken Corla. Minister, I'm proud to be co-sponsoring tonight's motion. The charity sector, I'm sure we all agree, plays a critical and crucial role in Irish society. We as legislators must ensure that the sector is both well-governed and well-regulated. We owe that to those who use the services that charities provide, to those who work for charities, and indeed to those who donate to charities, be it their time, their expertise, their money. And for the charity sector to be effective, it must command public trust. Fundraising Ireland calculates, Minister, as I'm sure you're aware, that the revelations of CRC and rehab alone account for an 11% drop in total donations. And most recently, we obviously have the debacle surrounding Console. But tonight, Minister, I'd like to raise another aspect of the charity sector that has potential to further erode public trust. And that is the use of charities by certain companies to allow those companies avoid paying taxes in Ireland. Now, last week in the Chamber, I raised the case of Mars Capital. The company is being used to invest what Minister Noonan describes as funds managed by Oak Tree Capital. This is a US firm that buys distressed debt and bought many thousands of Irish mortgages. Now, Mars Capital's accounts show that for an investment of €80 million, they expect to see a return of nearly €400 million. So net of costs, Minister, this suggests that Mars Capital should be looking at about 300 million in profits. Profits made by buying an asset in Ireland, profits made by managing that asset, taking in hundreds of millions in capital and interest payments from Irish families, profits that should rightly be taxed in this country, with the benefit going to the Exchequer and to the Irish people. But because, Minister, of how the finance structure has been set up, this 400 million that Mars Capital is going to pull in return for its 80 million investment is going to be paid onwards to an unknown company in an unknown location. We know that Oak Tree has funds that specialise in European distressed debt, exactly the type of debt that Mars Capital has bought. And we know that these funds are located in the Cayman Islands. And we know that the corporate tax rate in the Cayman Islands is 0. So if Mars Capital is moving the 400 or so million to the Cayman Islands, or indeed anywhere out of Ireland, then Mars Capital, in spite of it looking like they may have earned profits to the tune of about €300 million, will actually declare very little profit in Ireland to be taxed. In fact, their first year in operation shows that they received over 14 million in revenue, but by the time they had made payments to this unknown company in this unknown location, the total amount of corporation tax they ended up paying last year was €250. Now, what I didn't refer to last week was the ownership structure of Mars Capital, and that's why it's very relevant to the charity sector and the motion before the House today. It turns out that Mars Capital, which is managing an asset worth about €155 million, has 3 shares. And each of these shares is in the ownership of a charitable trust. 1 share is owned by Bave Charitable Trust, 1 share is owned by Erode Charitable Trust, and 1 share is owned by Maeve Charitable Trust. So what do we know about these 3 charities? Well, thanks to the reporting of Mark Paul in the Irish Times and others, we know quite a bit. We know, Minister, that all 3 are controlled by one of Ireland's top corporate law firms, Matheson. Matheson describes itself as, quote, the law firm of choice for international companies and financial institutions doing business in and through Ireland. Through being a very important word. We know, Minister, that Bave, Erode and Maeve all have charitable status and so are tax exempt. We know that Bave, Erode and Maeve own a lot of companies registered in Ireland, including Mars Capital. We know that these companies that the charities control have billions of euro in assets. Billions of euro in assets. And we know, Minister, astonishingly, in my opinion, that the stated principal activity of these three charities, which owns companies controlling billions of assets in this country, the stated principal aim is, quote, to raise cash for good causes. This is not the charity's attempt at irony, perhaps suggesting that helping hedge funds avoid paying tax in Ireland is a good cause and this raises them money. Because it turns out, Minister, that these charities actually receive charitable donations. In 2014, these charities received over €300,000 in charitable donations. And in the same year, these charities contributed over €300,000 to good causes in Ireland. So just think about this for a second. We have three charities owned or controlled by a corporate law firm. These three charities mysteriously own companies in Ireland controlling billions of euro in assets. And for some reason, they're also taking in €300,000 in charitable donations and then donating that money on. Now, the question any of us have to ask is, why are Irish charities being made the shareholders of firms that are legally avoiding paying their taxes in Ireland? What possible reason does Mars Capital, a distressed debt company, have for issuing its shareholding to three charitable trusts? The answer, I would suggest, is to avoid paying tax. Now, charitable status should not be, I would suggest to you, Minister, and to the House, charitable status should not be available to hedge funds. Charitable status should not be available to debt collectors. Charitable status should not be available to these so-called special purpose vehicles. Charitable status should not be available to companies operating in the shadow banking sector in Ireland with the specific aim of avoiding paying taxes due in this country. Minister, Irish charities like BAVE, Erode and Maeve, which are receiving charitable donations, should not own companies controlling billions of euro in assets in order to help them avoiding paying taxes. It may be legal, but I would suggest to the House that it shouldn't be legal. It deprives the state of very valuable taxes. Taxes, ironically, that the state could be using to provide some of the public services that these charities, the real charities, have stepped in to provide. And critically, Minister, and the reason I bring this up in the context of tonight's motion, charities, legally recognised charities, operating in this way surely significantly erodes public trust in the sector. Now, I know that officials in various departments have raised concerns about what is happening here. Can I also suggest that as we give the charity regulator the legal powers it needs and the resources it needs, that the charities regulator also should be looking at charitable trusts in Ireland that are in fact receiving donations and making contributions, that would appear to be set up expressly to help firms avoid paying taxes to the Irish state. Thank you.